of my father, Vladimir. Tyler knows him, met him, and perhaps some of you know him as well. And just thinking of how he came to Canada from Romania, a communist country that was ruled by communism, and the brothers often would have to gather in forests and pretend that they're having birthday parties or celebrations to mask that they were seeking God. And many times they were betrayed, and there would be Judases among the gatherings, and they would tell the police, and the police would come storm in and arrest people, and so they lived in those kind of times. And just to backtrack a little bit, my dad, he was an orphan at the age of 4 years old. His dad died in an accident, and he was a farmer, or farming, and he was in a cart, and he was on the way back after a full day of work. He was going away from the field, and he was in this tractor wagon, and he thought that the wagon would flip, and so he jumped, and when he jumped, he hit his head on a rock, and he started to bleed. And it was a really hot day, my dad was saying, and he decided to walk home with, he probably had some brain bleeding, and when he got home, he asked his wife, "Can you give me some water?" And when he drank this cold water, it made the blood like jelly, and so he died really shortly after that. And so my dad was an orphan. His mom was a single mother, didn't remarry, grew up 5 children, and my dad said, sometimes he didn't have food. So yeah, it's really interesting how the Lord worked. His mom provided, and many times my dad would eat like bare onions for food. So but yeah, my dad eventually, he grew up, and see, the Lord's ways are not our ways, and it's kind of hard to talk about these things, but behind all of the tragedy and hard life, and we see how God provides for his own, and God is with faith. So my dad grows up, he marries my mom, and the Lord puts it in his heart to leave Romania because he doesn't have the government at that time would seize the goods from everybody, and then they would give you like a piece of paper, and then you would have to go get milk or eggs based on that, and then many times you'd be at the end of the lineup, and there was nothing for that person at the end, or for the last people coming in. So that was my dad said, even like fruit or bananas, it was something really rare to even have at that time in Romania. But the government portrayed that it was really well. In the media, they would fill their stores, and then they'd take a video of, wow, like our stores are full of cheese, but it wasn't like that. Even finding a pig's head was like a delicacy at that time. So my dad eventually, he does his high school, he marries, and he learns the butcher trade, and was a beekeeper at a time. And then eventually he decides to leave Romania. He had 2 children, and the first time he tried to cross the border, he was with an older man actually, and the man, as he was approaching the Romanian border in full daylight, it was like, I think, midday. He looked behind, my dad looked behind, and the old man wasn't there anymore. The guy had so much fear that he just decided not to cross the border. My dad went forward, and he saw the guard in the tower set up there, and he said, "Okay, I gotta climb the fence." He started climbing up the fence. He came up the post, came down, and the Romanian soldier met him on the ground right there. And he said, "Don't move." And he charged his gun, and he aimed at my dad. My dad jumped to the ground, and he shot over my dad's head. And so my dad said he heard the sound and the bullet right past his head. And he got back up and ran to the Yugoslavian side. And that was the first time my dad crossed the Romanian border. And it was only by God's grace that he's alive, because the Romanian soldier, he said, "You'll come back." And you know what? He did come back. The Yugoslavians, when my dad got to Yugoslavia, he didn't have a politically good enough reason for them, so they sent him back to Romania. And my dad served 1 year in prison, in the Romanian prison. And it was not easy for my mom at that time. But God put something in my dad's heart. And after he served 1 year, he got out and he came among a Romanian gathering, and no one really knew my dad at that time, and they didn't know what was in his heart, but he had it in his heart to still leave the country. And the Lord spoke through a prophet at that time, and the Lord said that he would give him victory in the thing that he is planning to do. And my dad believed that, and this time he went with a group of brothers in a different area, and they had a different plan, not to do it in daylight hours, to do it in a different time. And so they went and they came. It was February. It was really cold, and they had to cross a river. And the only way is either you swim, or there was a bridge there, but the bridge was patrolled with soldiers and it had dogs. And so the brothers, they took a stick and they plunged it into the river. And when they put the stick went all the way down. They said, "Oh wow, it's really deep." They took off their clothes. They wanted to swim, but they said, "No, the river's way too deep. There's ice." And they all, they all got on their knees and they started to pray. So my dad was saying, about an hour after they prayed, a heavy rain came, and the light off the bridge, the electric came off. The lights went out on the bridge, and by God's miracle, they passed along. These soldiers and these dogs did not sense them, like just a miracle of God. And they crawled from that point on, and at about 2 or 3 in the morning, when the guards don't patrol the fence line, they jumped to the Yugoslavian side. And when they got to Yugoslavia, my dad, he told them that he was leaving for religious reason, and they accepted that. And eventually, my dad was waiting, and during that time, he had in the nighttime he had a dream. So the ways of the Lord are not our ways. And in the dream, the Lord showed him a person that came to him with three binders, United States, Canada, and Australia. And in the dream, the person said, choose Canada. And my dad had no family here. All he knew from school was that Canada was really cold. He saw those igloos and like the polar bears and all that stuff. And so but you know what? He believed God, and he went forward. And so the next day, that's what happened. Someone came with 3 binders, and Australia, Canada, United States. And my dad picked Canada, and he was approved because he was a butcher by trade. Canada was looking for butchers. And yeah, that was just a part of my dad's journey of faith to Canada. But it makes me think that and I remember as a child listening to these stories, like I said, truly they have a real God, This is the real God. And we can boast in these things, that God has done great things for us, and He's able to do more abundantly than we ask or think. When circumstances arise, God is able to close eyes and open doors. So praise the Lord.